really coming down in full force.
Man, it's ugly out here. Real ugly.
Just look at the ice that's on these.
You can just break these limbs right off these trees because they're so frozen. And then look at that. Look at all the ice. This is what a lot of folks are dealing with right now. Massive trees that have come down on many of these area roads.
Even a fire truck got stuck.
Now we go to AccuWeather meteorologist Tony Lawback. He joins us from Harrisburg, Illinois, where many residents are still without power this afternoon. Tony, probably a scary situation for the folks there. Can you dive in a little bit more?
Yeah, we're definitely dealing with a lot of issues here, and part of that is kind of what you're seeing right here over my shoulder. One of these large pine trees taken down by the weight of the ice. This actually coming across the road. Crews having cleaned this up earlier in the day, but this is what a lot of folks are dealing with right now, trying to restore power. You have to navigate scenes like this where you have trees, massive trees that have come down on many of these area roads, and a lot of rural residents certainly are going to be feeling the effects of these power outages for quite some time. But when you factor in that heavy ice that is knocking down trees along with lines that look like this, you're in a recipe for trouble. You have some very thick ice, over a half an inch of ice weighing down a lot of these power lines. And if that isn't enough to take down those power issues or make those power issues worse on their own, then you start bringing down the weight of trees that come down on these lines. And then that is when you're starting to see the issues. We talked to some crews with Ameren. They're talking to a lot of the residents in the Harrisburg area that are without power. Hopefully should be restored by about 8 o'clock tomorrow. But this is an issue all across southern Illinois, right along the Route 13 corridor. A lot of residents I've talked to who have been without power since yesterday are finding some creative ways to keep warm today.
I've been in power since 11 last night, and I heard that transformer pop. And here's one pop over there. I think their power's back on. And then all of a sudden, we've been freezing since 11 last night. This is the way we're keeping warm. We got me some coffee here. I just may go get some hot dogs.
When you look at the power outages that are across the region here, tens of thousands of folks in Illinois without power alone. And again, that is mainly the southern part of the state where we saw the heaviest ice. Really what we call the South 13 counties in this part of the country here, really along State Route 13. So areas from Murfreesboro, Carbondale, which includes SIU, which is closed today. Heads up to Marion and then here to Harrisburg. From this point and then areas further down to the south, those are the hardest hit areas with some of the bigger ice totals. We'll show you those coming up here in a little bit, but a half an inch of ice or more in some places. I personally measured even 6/10 up to 3/4 of an inch in some isolated spots in this stretch. So that is the bad news of that. The good news is, though, minus the debris that is laying across a lot of the roads, the road conditions themselves are not too bad, Jeff. We've seen a lot of the crews out really taking care of the roads. In fact, most of my drive on the major routes were pretty dry in most of the lanes. We still had some issues with some blowing snow over some areas, and of course the back roads are going to be a little icy. So all of this going to take days to clean up, and as you mentioned, no warm up in sight, so it's going to be a while where this ice and snow sticks around.
All right, Tony, well, thanks for that report there. Familiar territory for you there in southern Illinois. Good stuff. For a closer look at the storm's impacts, we're joined now by Aaron Rigsby, storm chaser Aaron Rigsby in Columbus, Ohio.
Aaron, thank you so much for joining us. You were in Cincinnati earlier. How bad were the conditions there?
Yeah, good evening, guys. Well, we certainly got a lot to talk about since I was on this morning. You know, we had a brief break in that snow really early this morning, and I think caught a lot of people off guard, and they kind of put their guards down. We had another round of really heavy snow drop around 9 o'clock this morning, and it just caused total chaos across the metro of Cincinnati, almost so much so to the point where even a fire truck got stuck in responding to one of the calls that they had gotten earlier this morning. And it was the same story pretty much along all those major interstates. I-71, I-471, multiple times were shut down due to stuck semis, stuck cars. I even found myself at one point having to navigate through a lot of that mess because everyone that was getting stopped from the semis up ahead, it wasn't allowing plows to come through and clear away a lot lot of that snow, and then they themselves were getting stuck. So the last thing I wanted to be as part of that problem. Thankfully, I was able to shimmy my way out of there, but a lot of those folks were going to be sitting there for quite some time, and it just goes to show how things can change so rapidly with these very dynamic systems. At one point, we were getting about an inch or two an hour on top of what they had already gotten, and it was a record-setting day in Cincinnati. Their previous record of 6.9-inch daily snowfall total was shattered, and I believe as it stands now is at 10.5 inches of snow is what they picked up from the storm.
That's pretty impressive stuff. And hey, I know that you're back in familiar real estate here in central Ohio. You've seen a lot of things over the past 3 days here with this storm beginning much farther southwest and moving now into central Ohio. What are you going to remember the most from this particular storm?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, Jeff, growing up around this area, it's been quite some time since I've seen such a high impacting, snow event for the state of Ohio. A lot of times we get those quick Alberta Clipper systems that move through, get 1 or 2, maybe 3 inches of snow, causes some headaches for a couple hours, and then it kind of moves on. Everyone goes about their lives. I'm certainly going to remember the impacts that this particular storm had for quite some time, especially across the metro of Cincinnati, because, even in all my years of storm chasing, I see stuff new every single storm. I can't honestly say I've ever seen a stuck fire truck before during an event. So this one's going to stick with me for a long time, especially being on my home turf in the state of Ohio. And, it tells me it's not going to be here very long because we got another one on the heels of this storm. So we're not going to be quiet for very long.
All right, a lot of great storm chasers from the Buckeye State. You, Tony Lawback, and others. Thanks again, Aaron Rigsby, for all that you have been doing with this storm here. And I agree, when we brought that earth cam up in Cincinnati yesterday, it was nasty. Low visibility there, Covington, Cincinnati, and beyond.